this is Amy with Flower Moxie, and I've got Callie here with me today. She is one of the lead designers at Flower Moxie. She started out as a custom designer. She's been a professional florist for 10 years and actually got her undergrad in floral art and horticulture. So we've got a wealth of knowledge happening here. And today we're going to be teaching you how to do a grounded arch, so also known as a floor arch. And there's a lot packed into this tutorial, because the simplest way to do it, or the most straightforward way, is to take one foam or one lomey dish and build it, as you see fit, and then repeat like 6 to 8 times. So to do that half circle and to get that nice crescent, it would probably be about, you think 6 to 8 cages?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you could make it wider, but that means that's a lot of work and a lot of product. And so for a DIYer, that might be more than what you want to sign up for, because especially if you're working in foam, you really have to do it the day before, keep it in a cool location, mist it down with crowning glory. So it's kind of laborious, and it has to be done the day before or the day of. So I want to give you some other options that might be more budget friendly, and that will be less work and product and design time for you. So Jess built this incredible arrangement for another tutorial, which was the ground aisle markers. And Callie and I are going to repeat this and get something similar. And this is a really great learning moment, because when you're designing, especially when you're a DIYer, you're gonna have aunts and bridesmaids helping. And it's always nice to have a mock-up. But what you go for is not twins. It's like you're thinking sisters, not twins. So mine isn't going to look exactly like this one, unfortunately. But she's going to build in a foam cage, which is what this one's built in. But a foam-free option is what I'm going to be building in, which is a lomey dish, a design bowl, and this is the Oshun pouch. So this is completely compostable. At home, it's very biodegradable. You can get it on, I believe, what's it called? New Age Florals, but we'll have it in the link below. It comes flat. It's filled with basically, I think, like a coconut husk, and it comes really flat, really thin, and you pop a few holes in it, put it in water for about 10 minutes, and I mean, it like swells up like a diaper. I was like, oh my gosh, it got really large. So I'm gonna put it in this lomey dish, and what I would probably do is add a little bit of water to this water reservoir, and then of course I'm gonna tape down my mechanics. So Jess, we were talking about it before, kind of having like a little geek out moment, and I was like, do you like the cage or the lomey? And Jess was like, I always prefer the lomey, because you're always going to repurpose this. It takes a lot of product. So at the end of the ceremony, you just don't want to leave it out there all sad by itself. You're going to want to move it in, pop it in front of the band, pop it in front of your cake table, and we'll show you how to repurpose that. And yeah, I lost my train of thought. She prefers the lomey dish, and she's like, you can just pick it up really easily and carry it. So yeah. Either one will work though. We're gonna front load this out a bit, because it's just gonna be facing in one direction, but I'll make sure to do a little bit of coverage with some moss or some greenery in back, so it's not just totally naked in the back. Especially if you're a florist, you don't wanna leave it naked in the back. If you're working for a client, if you're DIYing, just leave it naked, it doesn't matter. Let's see. The way that we're going to show you how to reduce the cost is we're going to interject some live plants. So 3 wouldn't be enough to do a really nice curve. So that's why I have this big Boston fern. So we got this at the nursery. Let's see, where's my handle? So this was a hanging basket. And at the end, we're going to show you how we place these, how we mix it with our fresh flowers, and how we do a little bit of backfilling to make it all like flow together, and for it not to be like plant flowers. We're gonna make it look a little bit more seamless than that. So we're gonna get started. I'm gonna build in the Oshun, she's gonna build in the cage, and we're gonna try to replicate this. Wish us luck. Okay. GJ. All right, now we're gonna see who can build the best and the fastest. Mine's a little bit elevated just so you can see it better. I'm gonna cover the backside with moss, and Callie's gonna do the same. It helps reduce product. Where's my pins? Here we go. So I took some straight wire, made it into like a bobby pin, and I'm gonna take this clump moss. You can also use Spanish moss. And I'm just gonna get some coverage. Like I said before, this is gonna be more front loaded, but we're not leaving the back naked. So I'm gonna start out by doing this. And I feel like it kind of retains the moisture. Now, when I use the sheet moss or the clump moss, I like to get it wet because it helps it form. It gets really dry, so it helps it, you know, kind of form around what I'm pinning it to. And this is actually my first build with an Oshun pouch. I've been wanting to get one for a while, but they were sold out for a while. So I know that I need a trash stem to pierce this plastic, and that's what I'll probably use to drive in, you know, most of my stems. So. All right, we'll get going. I wish I had paid better attention to what Jess was building in the earlier video, because I'm like, where do I start, Jess? Where do I start?
It does help if you kind of tear the moss apart a little bit so it's not so thick. It's easier to get your stems in if you kind of loosen it up first. I keep looking at Jess's arrangement to make
sure. Jess's right there, and I'm like, oh, I'm uncomfortable.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
But yeah, as a florist, you know, you typically when you're working, you'll have a lead designer, they'll make a mock-up, and then the goal is to, you know, try to complement that look and not just, you know, do your own thing. So far, I'm pretty impressed with this Oshun. It's pretty nice and easy to drive my greenery stem into. So I'm starting by greening out. I do notice things like the heavier things twist a little bit more than they would. I think foam maybe grabs onto it a little bit better. So I did ask if these Oshuns are reusable, and they said they can be. So it really just depends how many holes are driven into it. But you know, when the little plastic cover starts to get quite a few, then I wish there was like a different sleeve you could drop the material into. That way you could repurpose it. I would say the negative thing about the Oshun is probably the price point. So you're gonna spend probably what, $3 a brick on foam?
Yep, it's gonna be double at least double for the Oshun pouch.
Yeah, the Oshuns come in at around $6 to $7. So I just got the sample pack with 3 so I could test it out. But you know, you only get married once, so I think it's a good investment. So because we're working with the Boston ferns, we brought in the sword fern to help it blend. And I thought the Boston ferns would be the nicest because they always kind of go up and over, and I don't have to worry about covering up the pot. So if you go for another plant, you might have to like get some of that straight paper moss to cover, or, you know, mine look like hers yet.
Yeah. It's beautiful. We're not going for just alike.
Not matchy-matchy. We tend to be competitive in a loving way, so that's what's happening here. I loved her whole thought process about grouping. So if you haven't watched Jess's video on aisle markers, she gave a really good tutorial. She went through some proper training, and they explained and taught her to do clusters, because when you do clusters, it's more visually impactful than when you polka dot things through. And so, you know, we've talked about that before, but she had such a better, well-rounded explanation. It is definitely worth listening to. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this Oshun. It's
Pretty stable.
yeah, it's holding really nice. So she did like a cluster of 3, and then she likes to work on a diagonal. So I'm gonna try to work on a diagonal. It's always fun, like if you're a new florist, try to freelance as much as you can, because there's always more things to learn. Like, you know, you never will have arrived. Like there's always new things to learn in floristry. And so by freelancing, you might learn a few other techniques that changes things up for you. So never be afraid of that. And florists are always needing extra hands, extra freelancers. And then you really build up your community, which is important. Because when you're a small business owner, as a florist, like typically you know, are on your own. So if you get the stomach virus, you still have to show up for that wedding, and it's good to have some floral friends. Okay. Let's see, where's she doing her stock? But my favorite thing in the world is to go in and design for someone else, because it's not my responsibility. Let me rephrase that. I can just sit and build and not have to worry about like the weight of the wedding on my shoulders. I'm just like, tell me what to build, and that's my favorite. I don't think mine looks anything like hers. Just like, keep working at it. Use all the good greenery. So what we're working with right here is sword fern, which is one of my favorites. The top can shrivel, so you can pluck it off and cut it off kind of at an angle. That's normal, but I love sword fern. Like as a florist, you kind of start getting your favorites, and this is one of them. So we've got some purple moon roses, which is one of our new favorites. I love the color, but I have to say they don't blow out really well. So you can blow into it, you can turn it upside down and spin it, and that helps open it, but yeah, these guys don't really love to reflex, so you kind of just get what you get, and that's okay. Not every rose has to reflex, but I sure love it.
Change that one. It's always good to take a step back, look at everything, and then if you need to make adjustments, totally fine.
Yeah, I can never really see the way it looks when I'm up close to it, which is why myself and most florists, when they're building bouquets, they're always like looking in front of a mirror, just because when you're up close to it, you know, you might think it's just complete trash, and then you get back and you're like, oh, that's okay. Or the alternate, you think it's like, looks banging, and then you get back and you're yeah, like I need to start over. So I'm pretty pleased. I didn't even have to use, I thought I was gonna have to use that trash bin, but that wasn't really necessary. So 10 out of 10 stars for the Oshun. All right. We did good. So I'm an excessive high fiver. If you ever get the pleasure of hanging out and drinking with me, about 2 drinks in, it's constant high five.
High five, high five. Especially if you're funny, you say something funny, guaranteed high five.
All right, let's take this to the ceremony space and finish it out. Okay, so we have our 3 large floral pieces set between these Boston ferns. I need to go kind of behind it and zhuzh it up a bit and reposition some of those ferns. I got these at a nursery. It's March, so if it had been April or May or June, you can easily find them at Lowe's, any hardware store. Walmart often sells them. But I have about $100 in ferns, and that's a lot less than if I did this all in florals. So to make it look a little bit more cohesive and the florals to be a little bit more incorporated, we're gonna backfill into these ferns, and there's a few different ways that you can do it. More than likely, you're gonna have to set this up a few hours before the ceremony. If you have hardier flowers like roses, carnations, cremones, you can skip water picking them, so that's an option. You would wanna get the water picks that have the spike on the end. I was out, so this is just an example, but normally they have like a spike, and you could push it down into the dirt of that plant. If it's a few hours before and you have hardy stuff, you can easily just come in and stick it down in the dirt. It's not gonna hurt anything. They'll probably hold up just fine as long as it's not extreme high heat. But if you're worried, you can do the water pick, or, and we're gonna try this out. I actually learned this from Passion Flower Sue. She was doing some type of ground installation, but these are cemetery cones, and I got them on Amazon, so they'll be in our Amazon store. But they hold water, and I placed just a little nugget of chicken wire in it. And this is like a great water source, and it's foam free. So I can take this down into the plant, and it has a spike, and I can drive it down into the plant. And I've placed 1 per plant. So we're gonna come in with a few different methods, and we will zhuzh it up, and we'll see how it looks in the end. So we're finished. It took us about 20 minutes, so maybe average about 20 to 30 minutes per cage or per lomey bowl. It took us, probably the 3 of us, about 10 to 15 minutes to backfill in the cemetery cones, also isolating a few loose flowers just down into the fern, into the dirt. And we're talking probably less than $500 of product, and that's if you DIY it. As a florist, I would charge about $2,500 to $3,000 easily to do this same thing. So the plants definitely help cut down the cost and cut down your design time. Now again, I want to go back to, we blended this in by adding florals to the plants and also bringing in that sword fern into our designs. So that mixed really well with the Boston fern. This is a nice summery spring look, but you don't have to use Boston fern. Jess was telling me there's a florist that she loves that uses heuchera plants in the fall and in the winter. And basically she'll take some of those heuchera leaves, which I've used in centerpiece and compotes before, and she would backfill into her floral designs. thus, following kind of the same method. So afterwards, we're gonna repurpose this in front of the cake table to show you how you can get the most use for your money. You can also put it in front of your sweetheart table. Just think of different places that you can place this to just stretch the beauty and your budget further. So this is the perfect example of what I'm talking about when it comes to repurposing your flowers. So we set up a little mock sweetheart table, a mock cake table. I bought this little sad cake as an excuse to have cake later, to show you what it's like when you incorporate ceremony designs into your reception. So if you're a DIYer, when you're making these choices, think to yourself, okay, how can I repurpose that? Because it will not only cut down on your design time, but it will make your flowers go further. So what I had here was aisle markers and a grounded arch. I had a live plant that was backfilled with fresh florals. And some of these were built in foam cages. Some were built with a biodegradable Oshun pouch and a lomey bowl. And it was really easy to pick up and transfer. And that way you can carry that beauty throughout your reception.